Hello again. Welcome back to the Continental Cup hockey tournament featuring the 23-24 NHL season. We started with all 32 teams, and now we're getting ready for the quarterfinals. We're down to the final 8. 24 teams, is that right? Have been eliminated. And so let's discuss those real quick before we get into the random draws. So I'll just pull these up here. So first up, we have the Calgary Flames are still alive. How did they get here? Calgary advanced 4-0 over Chicago in the first round. They matched up with New Jersey and had a really good 6-game series. But Calgary prevailed over the Devils, and now they are ready to take on all comers here in the quarterfinal round. Next up, we have Boston. And Boston, we just, that was the last series we played because we had, we kind of reserved this series. They had matched up with Winnipeg, which we considered a really good matchup, and it did not disappoint. It did go 6 games, and Boston prevailed 4-2 over Winnipeg. Well, I shouldn't say almost all those games. We had a lot of tight games and a couple overtime games in that series. But things just sort of bounced Boston's way, especially when things were tight. But there was a game that Winnipeg won easily, and there was a game that Boston won easily also. And one of the games Boston won easily was the ever important elimination game 6. So Boston now is set, and they're probably one of the favorites. They've been among the more impressive teams so far in getting through these first 2 rounds. Pittsburgh. So debatably our best series of this previous round was the Pennsylvania Hockey Championship, the state championship rivalry between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And that was the only series in this round that went to Game 7. And Pittsburgh won that. So really good series. I don't think Philadelphia or Pittsburgh would be favored to win this tournament, but here is Pittsburgh advancing to the quarterfinals. In their first round matchup, they pulled one of the biggest upsets we've seen, taking down the Colorado Avalanche 4-2. So luck has been on their side, and sometimes that's what you need in a big hockey tournament. Let me see here. Next up, the New York Rangers. Wow, they have lived up to the billing as the the President's Trophy winners, best record in the league, and they've played like it so far. They're taking this seriously. They actually, in the first round, we cannot forget that they swept out the Florida Panthers, and then which was unbelievable and unexpected. And then in round 2, they drew Arizona, believe it or not, and easy matchup for them. Arizona didn't have much of a chance, and New York blew them away as well. So they are 8 games into the Continental Cup tournament, and they've yet to lose one. 8-0. All right, Detroit. Interesting story here with Detroit. They've exceeded expectations, played surprisingly well. They pulled an upset in the first round, getting past Nashville 4-2. And then in the quarterfinal round, they matched up with, who is it? Detroit. Okay, so they matched up with Buffalo. And honestly, I think I favored Buffalo to win that series. But Detroit came through, and they won it in 6 games. So here is Detroit advancing to the quarterfinal round. We'll see who they match up with. Next up, Vancouver. I think next to the New York Rangers, this Canucks team has maybe been the next most impressive club in the tournament. We'll look back at round one where they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay, legitimate contender, probably about equal to Florida, the Florida Panthers or the Canes or somebody like that. And Vancouver took them out 4-1, so it wasn't all that close. They matched up with the Islanders, a very spirited Islanders team, and they had a good series, but the Islanders just couldn't quite get over the hump, and Vancouver also won that one 4-1, so they are 8-2 at this juncture. And let's see, next up, Los Angeles Kings. Surprisingly tough team here. Wait till you hear this. All right, so the Kings get here by way of, they beat Minnesota 4-1 in the opening round. And that's pretty good. The Wild have a decent team. So taking them out that easily was kind of surprising. But then, if you recall, if you saw the last video, they matched up, or they drew Edmonton. And, Edmonton, the Oilers, they're probably one of the favorite teams along with New York, I guess Vancouver, Boston in that mix, Dallas. There's a lot of worthy champions here, which is part of what makes this tournament and this particular season so fun to play with. But Los Angeles draws the Oilers, and we thought, well, it's going to be a good, hard series, but the Oilers should win that, right? Right? Maybe not. Edmonton, kind of like in the Stanley Cup finals, for real, they got in a hole and they were down a couple games and they battled back. They eventually tied the series and made a, made it interesting. But and it was a good series, even though it was only 6 games. But the Kings were just tough. I mean, they're very stout goaltending, one of the better defensive teams in the league. And if they get a little bit of luck and can put some pucks in the net, then they can beat anybody, as we've seen, having taken the Oilers out. So, who wants to draw these guys going into the quarterfinals? Of course, the team I've already mentioned, and the last one to discuss is the Dallas Stars. So Dallas, let's see, first round, they've had a tough path. So they took on the Capitals in the first round, and the Capitals surprisingly pushed them to Game 7. Dallas was able to survive that, and then they drew, of all things, the Vegas Golden Knights in the next round, which we thought would be equally tough of a series, and it was not easy. It only went 6 games, but Dallas had to dig out of the hole. They got smashed. They got steamrolled in Vegas in Game 1, and had to dig out of that hole to come back and win the series, which was also very reminiscent of what happened to them in the real life playoffs last season. So these are the 8 teams. That's how they got there. I'm going to switch camera angles, and we will do the random draws for the quarterfinal round of the Continental Cup. Stay right there. Okay, back at the table now, the new camera angle. So let's shuffle these guys up. While I'm doing that, I should mention that a tournament of this size is a fairly big undertaking. Let me look here. We've played, the first round alone was 88 games, and then the second round was 46 more games. So we've played 134 games to get to this point. All right. sure I've got these good and shuffled up since there's so few of them. I don't want to have any idea of who is where. All right, you ready? Let's draw for the quarterfinal rounds. I made this little sheet here to clearly indicate who is going to have home ice for the odd games, 1, 3, 5, and 7. The first flip gives us Boston. Oh dear, Boston at home. They're actually a little better of an away team, interestingly. And they're going to match up with, oh my goodness, that's Titanic. Look at that. This could have well been a final. The way the tournament has gone so far, these are two teams you could have pictured going for the Cup final. But here they are meeting in the quarterfinal round. Boston hosting New York for 1, 3, 5, and 7. Wow. All right. Next up, Vancouver gets some home ice against Detroit. Oh boy, I think that I think that spells the end of Detroit's Cinderella run. Vancouver and Detroit. The Calgary Flames. Well, the home ice might be enough to make them dangerous, right? Let's see. Oh, and Dallas. Wow, Dallas is a pretty good away team. One of the best. So, that could be a pretty good matchup, but Dallas should win that, right? I would think so. Who knows, though, right? The Caps gave Dallas a really tough go in the first round, and that's probably a similar matchup numbers-wise. All right, and that leaves our last two teams. So who is going to get home ice? It's going to be the Kings. Wow. And Pittsburgh. So, well, who knows? Who knows how that's going to go? I mean, the Kings got to have the edge, I would think, just because of their defense and goaltending and special teams. All those are in Los Angeles' favor, and now they've got home ice on top of that. But Pittsburgh has been has slayed a giant or two so far. So there you go. That is the quarterfinal matchups as we get into the last bit. The final, it should be somewhere around 30, between 30 and 40 games remaining to see this tournament out the rest of the way. So it's going to go by quick compared to these big first couple rounds. All right, well, thanks for watching. There's our matchups, and I'm excited to get started. See you later.